Hey, everybody, welcome to our very first edition of this brand new podcast. We got one hell of a guest for our first podcast, too. I have with us today the host of the #1 real estate investing podcast in all of the United States called the Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing Podcast. We have Rod Khleif. Rod, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming.
Glad to be here, brother. Glad to be here. We're going to have a lot of fun today. This is exciting.
So, Rod, obviously you've seen it all, been there, done it all. How did you get started first and foremost in this business?
Well, let me go back because it's relevant. So I immigrated to this country when I was 6 years old with my mother, Zvancha, and my brother, Albert. And we came over from Holland, ended up in Denver, Colorado, where we lived the next 30 years and didn't have much money. In fact, I wore clothes from the Goodwill through junior high school. We ate expired food, drank powdered milk because that's all we could afford. And now, I know a lot of people had it harder than we did, but I knew I wanted more. And so my mom had an incredible work ethic. When she was when I was 14, she was babysitting kids. And with her babysitting money, she bought the house across the street from us for $30,000 when I was 14. Then she told me when I was 17, about to graduate from high school, that she'd made $20,000 in her sleep from that house. I'm like, what? I'm getting into real estate. So, I got my real estate broker's license right when I turned 18. You could do it through education then. You didn't need experience like you do now.
Okay.
And of course, I thought I was going to be rich in real estate. I got a bus bench with my picture on it, put it down to the end of the street, which made her proud, but didn't give me any business.
But
and
you got to see your face on an advertisement.
And it was a pretty ugly rendition of but my first year in real estate, I made $8,000. Second year, maybe $10,000. But my third year, I made over $100,000, which back in that would have been 81 was a pretty decent amount of money for a 21-year-old. And so what happened between year 2 and year 3? And what it was I learned about the psychology of success, how really 80 to 90% of your success in anything, including real estate, is your mindset, it's your psychology, it's your ability to push through fear and actually take action on what you want, or to get up when you've been, had your nose bloodied, or to push out of comfort. A lot of people are in comfort and they won't take action. And it's all psychology. And so, I met a guy that taught me about that and, got me off square one, got me past my limiting beliefs, and I started killing it. And so fast forward to today, I've owned over 2,000 houses, multiple apartment complexes that I held long term. I've built 24 businesses. Several have been worth tens of millions of dollars, and most have been spectacular, flaming seminars. I call them seminars, not failures.
Mm-hmm.
But
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, I've had a lot of air quotes seminars myself. Thank you.
We all have, so back up in 2006, I had 800 houses and multiple apartment complexes here in Sarasota, and my net worth went up $17 million while I slept. A little more than my mom's, and
a little bit.
Yeah, and so my head got so big I could barely fit it through a door. I thought it was a real estate god.
Well, that's natural.
Yeah, well, when that happens, though,
do that, don't we?
When that happens, though, God or the universe or whatever you believe gives you a smackdown.
Yep.
Yeah, well, my smackdown was 2008, and I had a $50 million seminar in 2008. Ooh. Yeah, and that was conservative, and so, I thought 80 million baby boomers getting old and getting cold. I thought Florida was recession-proof. Well, little did I know it was going to be ground zero for the recession.
Yeah.
And so, I guess if you'd like, we can talk about how I got past that to the success that I have today. Because I thought I was set for life, and I lost it all. I mean, I crashed and burned. I lost everything. And if you want to get into that, I'm happy to talk about what it took, the mindset it took to get past that.
I kind of want to get there later, actually.
Okay.
I want to talk a little bit more how when you got started, that 2 to 3 year thing, changing your mindset. Where did that, what was that thing that changed the mindset? Because it wasn't just you just woke up one day and all of a sudden you just were going to power through,
nope.
right? So what was that thing?
It was a focus on goals.
Okay.
It was a focus on knowing what it is you want and why you want it. Mm-hmm. And, in fact, I do live events, and I've got one coming up here in short order in Tampa here locally, but the first thing we do is goals. The first thing we do is determining your whys. The first thing we do is finding that fuel that everybody needs to take massive action on their dreams. Because, so many people will go to an event like I put on or buy a course or do something like that. And then 90% of them, frankly, that's usually the statistic, don't do a damn thing with it. Yeah. And so, I not on my watch. So, and I learned that, you really have to find that fuel. You have to tap into exactly what you want with clarity. You have to tap into exactly why you want it. And then you have to, do some visualization to manifest those things into your life. And, and I've done it over the years, and it's served me well. And that's actually what got me back out, of the slump that I went in, and I was a pity party for a few months when I lost it all. I had, hiding under a rock, but I'm back now. And
well, what are your thoughts on that?
On what?
You said I had a pity party for a few months when I lost. Some people say, no, you got to pick yourself up and get going again. Other people are like, no, listen, you need to accept where you're at and kind of let it play its course. And,
hell no. No, it's a failure. I'm in several masterminds I put on my own. And I was in one called the War Room. It's digital marketers, mastermind of best digital marketers in the world. Everybody there is a millionaire. And they brought in Sarah Blakely, and I got to talk to her. She's a billionaire owner of Spanx, started with $5,000. Now she was on Forbes like 3 months ago. Her father asked her and her brother every night at dinner, well, maybe not every night, but regularly, what have you failed at today? Is that a freaking awesome question?
Great dad right there.
Right? I love that.
Looking back on it, it's great. But man, and then when you're dealing with that at dinner every day.
Listen, we fail our way to success.
Sure.
This is very true.
We fail our way to success. I've had lots of seminars, but there's seminars because you grow and you learn and you become more.
I love that, seminars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the truth of it, though. They're only a failure if you fail to learn, you fail to grow, and you give up.
Right.
Okay, so you pick your ass back up you pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and I thought I was set for life, man. I mean, truly thought. I mean, I was set for life, and so it was painful. So that was the 2 or 3 months, but then I was like, you know what? I knew what I wanted. I knew why I wanted it, and I just picked myself back up and got going again. But again, if you'd like, it's the end of the year. I don't know when this episode's going to air. If you're going to air it by January, but
early January.
Yeah, then we let me take a few minutes and talk about that process that I used, because I think it'll add a lot of value to your listeners.
Okay.
And I know that this podcast is going to kill it, so let's do it. All right. So what I did and what I teach my students, my coaching students, and I teach at the live event is, and those of you listening, just grab a pen and paper, pull over if you're driving, and take a few notes, because it's a really powerful process, and it's not your typical goal setting. So what you're going to do is you're going to pick an hour when you have a ton of energy. So you don't do it right after a meal. You do it, when you're the most energetic. You make sure you're hydrated, and you sit down and you write down everything you could ever possibly want in life. Okay, so it's all the stuff. It's the cars, the jet skis, the boats,
goals,
the planes, all that stuff. The private islands, the yachts, the jets. Take the lid off your brain, and if you have any inclination that you might want it or aspire to have it, write it down. Write the houses, the vacations, how much money you want in the bank, how much cash flow you want a month. Write all that stuff down, and take the lid off your brain, because we're only limited by our own thoughts, okay? That's the only limitations we have. When someone like Elon Musk can start $3 billion startups, there's just no excuses. You can truly do anything you want in this world. So you just have to make the decision, frankly, and take the lid off your brain. So imagine that it's Christmas, and if you write it down, you'll get it, because it's not outside the realm of reality. When I was in Denver, I knew I always wanted to live on the beach, and there's no beach in Denver. And so, I knew that's what I wanted. And I ended up building a $8 million house on a Gulf to Bay lot on Casey Key down in Sarasota. And, I owned the beach on one side, and I had boat houses on the backside. And that was unthinkable when I was 18. But I put it into my head. So don't limit yourself. Put it into your head, those of you listening. And then, and don't let the pen leave the paper. If you're analytical, don't analyze it. You can scratch it out later. But then as soon as you're done, you can't think of another thing. Also write down what you want to learn. If you want to learn a foreign language, I want to learn how to fly helicopters, and I want to learn how to play the drums. My wife bought me a drum set, and it's in one of the buildings in my compound now, and I don't even know what end of the stick to use yet, but I'm going to learn how to play the drums. And so, whatever it is you want to learn, write that down, and also write down who you want to help. I was blessed to be able to buy my parents a house down in Port Charlotte here in Florida, bought them a car, took them on cruises. So write down who you want to help. So it's everything you want to do, be, or have. It's not just the stuff. And then once you can't think of another thing, there's just a couple more steps here. It's not real until it's measurable. So make sure whatever your goal is, make sure it's measurable for sure. It can't
That's
just
the one
be
that people screw up all
right.
the time.
I'm going to lose some weight. No, I'm going to lose 10 freaking pounds by January 1st and feel great about it. Okay, so make it measurable. But then you've also got to put a time limit on it. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to put a number by each one of your goals. How many years it's going to take you to achieve it? 1, 3, 5, 10, or even 20. Remembering that as human beings, we will underestimate what we can do in a year and overestimate what we can do in a year and massively underestimate what we can do in 5 or 10 years.
True.
Like I said, that house example, I never would have believed I could do it. Now, by the way, by writing these goals down, it triggers something called your reticular activating system. And that's that filter in your brain that determines what it is you really want. And a great example of it is, like when you first buy a car, you never really notice them. You buy it, you see them everywhere. And they were always there before. Your brain didn't recognize them. So by writing these goals down, it triggers your brain to start moving in the direction of those goals. Now, you guys all know this, but some of your listeners may not. So then once you've got a number by each goal, I want you to pick your number one goal. The one that if you got it would be like, holy crap, I cannot believe I did this. I mean, that goal, okay? And if there's 2 or 3 of them, just pick one. It won't matter for what we're going to do next. Then pick your top 3 one-year goals. So you've got 4 goals, and we're almost done here. You put them on a separate sheet of paper, and then this is the important part. You write down why it's an absolute must to achieve those goals, not a should. We say I should do this, I should do that, and we end up shoulding all over ourselves. Write down why it's an absolute must to achieve those goals, and use emotionally charged language, like so that I can show my family what success looks like. So we can do whatever we want, wherever we want, whenever we want, and bring whoever we want.
Rod, when I said that everybody screws up on the timeline thing, and your response to that was right. I'm not going to lose weight. I'm going to lose 10 pounds by January, and then at the end of that, you just naturally said and feel great about it.
Right.
I never heard anybody throw that at the end of that.
We talk about all the same stuff that we all talk about.
That
but
caught
I've
me
never
off.
heard that part.
Did that catch you off guard?
It did. I was like,
it
whoa,
just
wait a
naturally
second.
came right. I'm going to do this. By then, I'm going to feel great about it.
Yeah.
So
that just made that a lot more powerful.
Well, and that's why writing your whys down with emotionally charged words, powerful words. Words are very powerful. So we can have a magnificent life so I can show my kids what success looks like. So we can have so my wife can stop working or my husband can stop, whatever it is. Right? Make sure you do that piece because it's the why that's going to drive you. But once you've got one for each one of your goals, why it's an absolute must, then I want you to write down some pain if you don't achieve it. For example, so I don't feel like a failure. So I don't fail my family. So I don't live a life of regret. I know that sounds painful,
tough,
but brother, we will, as human beings, we will do more to avoid pain than gain pleasure.
Very true.
So this is the fuel, guys. This is what makes you get your ass out of bed early Saturday morning to work or stay up late, when the kids are asleep to build your dream. And you've got to have the fuel, and it's not just the pleasure, it's also the pain.
Right.
So, and then the last piece after
Before you go to the last piece, I don't know about y'all, but I'm already ready to freaking fire up and get this thing going. I'm ready to call it a day. Go start writing my goals out better for next year because we missed a few things.
Guys, those of you listening and you guys, I really believe you should do your goals a couple times a year.
Yeah.
It's that time of the year now. I know I'm speaking at your meetup group tonight. We're going to do that. I got the sheets to give everybody to fill them out, and so
nice.
and so. You do the goals, you do the whys, but then there's one more step, guys. There's one more step, and I'll tonight you're going to see because I brought an example of this. But get pictures of your goals. Get pictures. Go on Google. There's millions of pictures. Find ones that resonate with you, that when you look at them, they stir you. They don't have to be exactly what your goals are, but when you look at them, you're like, wow, yeah, that's. And then take them to Walgreens or CVS. You can blow them up for $7-8 and put them where you're going to see them. And tonight I'll show you what I did. I've got pictures yeah, they're out in the car right now, but I've got pictures. I use a paper planner. Well, actually, let me back up, okay? If you'll humor me, let me just talk about visualization for a second as well. I know I talked about goal setting, but so that's the goal setting process. You've written your goals down, you've written your whys down, you've gotten pictures of them, and then you're set. Put them somewhere you're going to see them. Put them on your phone, put them on your laptop, put them on the wall. All right, so let me give you some examples of visualization, and you guys will see pictures tonight when I do the presentation, but it's visualization works, guys. I mean, right now, every Olympic athlete, before they run a race, they're trained to visualize it first. Okay. Another example would be Jim Carrey wrote himself a check for $10 million when he was flat broke, and he looked at it every day, and that's how much he made for his first big movie, Dumb and Dumber. And then there are numerous examples about this, but let me give you mine. Okay, so back when I turned 18 and I got my broker's license, I bought this bone ugly four-door Ford Granada. Okay, ugliest thing you ever saw, silver car, just bone ugly, and. Because you got to have a four-door car. You're going to show houses. You're going to sell houses. I'm going to be a big-time realtor. You guys know this well. You got to have a four-door, right? So anyway, but I worked with a broker that had a Corvette, and he let me drive it, and that's a key piece. Okay, I got to drive that Corvette. I'm like, man, this is so freaking cool. And so this is before you could even spell internet. I got a picture. I got a picture of a Corvette out of a magazine. I taped it on the visor of my Granada. Looked at it every time I got in the car. Within a year, I had a beautiful Corvette. I'll give you a couple more examples, but let me pre-frame these examples by saying. This may sound like I'm bragging. I am not, because this stuff doesn't even interest me anymore. But they're great for example purposes.
Well, yeah, it worked for you.
It worked. So if it'll inspire your listeners and to do something similar, I promise you this works. So, this was the time of Magnum PI. Was a TV show. A guy named Tom Selleck, and he drove this hot Ferrari 308, red Ferrari, and I got a picture of that actual Ferrari out of a magazine. Put that on the visor of my Corvette. Within a year or two, I had a Maserati. It looked just like it. Last example, car example again. I'm the guy that always wanted a Lamborghini, okay? Mike Tyson got one for him and his wife, a Countach, and I had posters on my bedroom wall with the bikinis and the soap and, the Lamborghinis, yeah. So I had all of that. And I actually got let me back up. My son was 9 years old at the time. He collected models of exotic cars. He had a model of the exact same color and style that I ended up getting, which is, just crazy, because he was visualizing me bringing him to school in one, because I made the mistake of telling him. I made the mistake of telling him I was thinking about getting one. But, I wrecked it. But that's another. But anyway, so
that's the after show.
Right. So guys, this stuff works, and I'll show you. I've got my planner out in the car, and I'll show you tonight. In the back of this planner are pictures that have been in there for 20 years. They're dog-eared. They're in plastic. The first pictures are gratitude pictures, because everything starts from a place of gratitude. But then I've got pictures of the Lamborghini before I ever got it, the Rolls Royce before I ever got it, the houses that I got, and they look just like them. It's crazy. The watches that I thought were, things that I thought were important.
You
at
kept
the time.
all this stuff.
I have it out. I've got
you
it
kept
on the
all
car.
because you knew if you did get there, you'd want to look back at that.
I have pictures of what I wanted in the back, and I've gotten 90% of the things in those pictures.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
so
pretty badass.
guys, this stuff really does work. Some of the we'll lose some of the analytical ones are like, this is too foofy for me, and that would be to your mistake. If you're listening and you're thinking this is too much, I'm telling you, you're making a big mistake, because this is what got me back. After losing $50 million, after losing everything, I built that $8 million house on the beach. I lost that. I lost everything, but I'm back now.
Right.
And I've got an incredible compound on the water, 6 buildings, 2 acres. Overlooks the bay. I mean, it's magnificent. It's like a park. And because God's got a sense of humor, I can see my old house across the bay.
Wow, that's pretty freaking awesome.
Like the Great Gatsby.
Yeah, it's right there. It's right there. But anyway, this visualization really does work. So. Anyway, goal setting and visualization. So,
I save a lot of stuff from previous projects and all this, and it looks horrible now. It was like very amateur look of signs and whatever. And people always say, "Why are you saving that?" And I go, "Because I'm going to want to look back. I'm going to want to look back at it at some point and draw from that." I just find it fascinating how you went back to the same things that you did before.
Well, it's knowing what I wanted and why I wanted it. But I will tell you, what you just said is very powerful, and I teach this to my students, and that is, think back to a time you were successful. because if someone's getting into multifamily real estate, which is what I teach, it's foreign, it's intimidating, it's scary. So I say, what I want you to do is think back of a time when you kicked butt. Okay, how did you carry yourself? How did you breathe? What did you think about? What did you focus on? And bring that energy into what you're doing right now, so you can act as if. Okay, you act as if. You bring that energy. And you reassociate because you know how to be successful. And it's emotional and it's psychological, and you have to bring that energy to whatever it is you're going to try.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about multifamily. You brought it up. What are those scary aspects? You just said, what are the big things that are the scary monsters that are multifamily investing for most people?
It's just a learning curve. Okay, that's it. Bottom line, it's just a learning curve. It's like anything else. You can't dabble. If dabblers get crushed. I don't care if it's the stock market. I don't care if it's flipping or wholesaling or multifamily. If you dabble, you're going to get your butt kicked. So you just have to learn it. I mean, it's not rocket science. What's great about multifamily real estate investing is it's pretty much empirical. It's numbers. If the numbers make sense, all things being equal, as long as it's you're not in the hood and you're not in an area that's 50% vacant and you haven't done your homework and you don't know that, or you don't do your due diligence to make sure there's nothing wrong with the building, or just common sense stuff. Sure. It pretty much is a common sense business, but it is a little intimidating especially if you get into larger deals, like you're going to do a $10 million deal and syndicate it, and there's a learning curve. I mean, that's it. And what's crazy, it's like anything else. It's the law of the first deal. That first deal is the hardest one. It's the scariest one. It takes the longest. And once you've done it, it's like they're like dominoes, man. Mm-hmm. It's just after that, I've seen it time and time again. It's just getting that first one done.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
When you started hopping into the multifamily stuff, did you, whenever it was you got going with that, did you get in there and hire out all of the management stuff, or did you say, I'm going to keep that in-house?
Let's talk about that.
Try to control this.
Now, let's talk about that. So there are different kinds of multifamily. Okay, there's residential, which is 2 to 4 units, which has its advantages and its disadvantages. And I'll just briefly say the advantages are you can get residential debt. You can get 30-year fixed. 3% down debt if you live in it. I mean, if you're young and listening to this show and you're thinking about getting your first property, for God's sakes, get a Plex. Don't get a house. Go get something that you can ultimately rent out, and you can probably live there for free if you buy it right. I've got numerous people that I've got a wall of thank you cards from people that have done just that and bigger deals on their first deal. So get a place. So that's residential. That's the advantages to residential is the debt is fantastic. You can get into it low down. If you can qualify for a lot more house because a lot more property because you can utilize a percentage of the rents from the other units. So it's just a fantastic way to get started if you're young and you don't have somebody wanting a white picket fence on that first property.
Right.
So but then. Then commercial is 5 units plus. Okay, so anything 5 units to 1,000 units is commercial multifamily. Now, your question related to management. Okay, now you can find management to manage a 4-plex, a 10 unit, a 20 unit, a 30 unit. There are ways to do that effectively if you buy right. But if you want on-site management, you're going to want to do 60, 70 units or more. Okay, and then you can have an on-site maintenance guy, you can on-site leasing agent, and that's about the threshold.
And those people work directly underneath you.
They work directly for the property. Now, even with those properties, a lot of investors get third-party management to manage those employees on the property. Okay. So you're paying a small management fee plus the salaries. Okay, but that's common, and and what's great about this world that we live in. I mean, when you guys probably didn't even have to experience this. When I started in real estate, your listings were in a book. Okay, you got a book every week. Yeah, I mean, you got a book every week that had all the listings in it, little like newspaper caliber paper. That was how you saw your listings. I mean, you guys were so blessed to live in this in this day and age, because you can, in your underwear, you can do your preliminary due diligence on a property. You can go on Google Earth and drive down the street and
do it all the time.
Sometimes I wish it was still like that, because I feel like if it's like that, whoever puts in the most actual physical work then is the one that wins. People have less opportunity to outsmart each other, and like raw elbow grease plays a bigger role.
I couldn't agree more, and I will tell you the people that are the most successful on this planet are the ones that are willing to do what others won't.
Absolutely.
And I will tell you, one of the other things that happened in year 2 to year 3, when I went from 10 grand to 100 plus grand, was I started knocking on doors. I knocked on doors of people that were in foreclosure. yeah, hey, I saw you having some trouble with countrywide funding. You know, I help people in this situation, and I would list or buy houses, about 500 houses in Denver that way. You know, so doing what other people aren't willing to do. I've got a coaching student, Matt, and he listened to what I told him, and he drove by this eightplex every day, and he just saw it, and it was run down, and finally heard me in his ear kicking him in the butt to go knock on the door, and he knocked on the door, and it was an 80-year-old owner. Now he owns it. Boom. Then he got a list of all the people that had owned 20 years in his town and that had multi-units, and he found out who lived there, and he went and knocked on their doors. And second one was the guy, 80-year-old guy that owned a sixplex, and said, "You own that one?" He said, "Yeah." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "You ever thought of selling it?" "Yeah." And now he owns that. He just did it again with another eightplex. So he's got 3 properties doing what other people aren't willing to do.
Knocking on doors.
Doing what other people aren't willing to do.
I got to tell you, like the amount of people that I talked to in positions like you that at some point in the past there was literally knocking on doors.
You know, I saw
pounding the pavement.
Thing.
I saw the billionaire that owns Patron and Paul Mitchell Health Products, John Paul DeGioia. He's a billionaire. Okay,
yeah, same thing.
And he talked about starting John Paul out of the back of his trunk of his car, going from salon to salon, selling his products. Same thing with Patron. He went from bar to liquor store to bar, selling Patron liquor, and that's $2 billion startups doing what other people aren't willing to do.
Yeah.
So this is a PSA to all of our agents that came to our training this morning. What exactly did I tell you to go do?
Right. Knock on doors.
Knock on the freaking doors of your neighborhood and go pitch yourself as the expert
we need to
in
come up
town.
with some kind of a door knocking contest.
Let me give you another example.
I don't know how you do it, but like
let me give you another example. You know, a couple of guys that I helped that are now one of them is in my mastermind. I've got a very high level mastermind. It's about $3 billion in assets represented, and one of the guys, Jacob, and his partner Sterling, when I interviewed them on my podcast. If you listen to my podcast, it's Lifetime Cash Flow. If you listen to it, one of the early episodes was these guys, and they had just bought a 50 unit by driving around looking for rundown properties and then doing everything they could to find the owners. And you're thinking, well, duh, you know, that's a no-brainer. Well, it is a duh, but nobody does it in the multifamily space. Right. Now they do it in wholesaling and single family, but they don't do it in multifamily. It's crazy. So they just closed on that 50 unit. They had a 46 unit under contract when I interviewed them that they got from calling for rent ads in Craigslist and saying, "Hey, do you want to sell?" Mm-hmm. I mean, who does that, right? But they did, and they closed on that one too. I know. So
Jeremy, what's that resource that we got from Brian Chavis about skip tracing multifamily people? You remember that one?
Oh, I don't remember it at the moment.
We'll have to get that because there's a new program out there where you can skip trace LLCs and they'll actually go there and do the
that's one of the things that I'll talk about tonight, and that is, you know, another example of that is if you pull a list of commercial property owners. In whatever market you're in, you're going to find that most of those properties, 5+ units, are owned in entities. Mm-hmm. They're owned in LLCs or corporations. Yep. And if you mail to the registered agent in the entity, well, you know where that mail's going. So I had 8 virtual assistants in the Philippines that would break down the entity. They'd go to the sunbiz.org, which is the Florida Secretary of State, but whatever state you're in, go to the Secretary of State office, look up that LLC or that entity, find out who the owners are, find out their home addresses, and mail them there. Yep. And it makes a huge difference in your responses. Again, doing what other people aren't willing to do.
Yeah, so I have it here. It's called Reonomy.
That's my students use that when I was going to.
How do you spell that?
What we were talking about.
What's that?
How do you spell that?
Just REO.
Onomy, Reonomy,
just like it sounds.
Yeah,
just like it sounds.
Yeah, that's a great new platform.
It's relatively inexpensive.
Yeah, and it's kind of a competitor to CoStar and some of these very expensive platforms. But it works very well. I have students using it.
Have you ever gotten in on anything like that? Any kind of like software or information technology in the industry?
I'm thinking about doing an app just because I've got a lot of video content out there and audio content out there, and it would be easy if I had an app for people to, really just see it all, and
like all your own resources and calculators.
I was at a Tony Robbins event, and I was telling you guys earlier that I spent 20 years following him around the planet, and what an incredible resource he is. And if you have, a shameless plug for him, nothing in it for me, but if you have an opportunity to see him while he's still talking, you're crazy not
Greg,
to do
you
it.
go to those, right?
We went to our first Unleash the Power with him last November, and it was
Mind blowing, right?
Yeah.
Mind blowing.
Put you on fire.
emotional.
Yeah. So
Really?
yeah,
Still
no,
brings me
it's
back. I
fantastic.
still actually get pretty choked up thinking
yeah.
about.
I see that.
Dude.
What's going on here?
I'm telling you.
What happened to you, Greg?
It was,
Cut the camera.
No, keep it rolling.
There's
No,
nowhere
it was,
you
man.
can go.
Tears of joy.
There is
Yeah,
nowhere you can
absolutely.
go. There's nowhere you can go to get that depth of emotion.
No.
And that's why I kept going back. And
Yeah.
and you know and I forgot why I went there, but yeah, totally.
We were talking about starting an app.
Oh yeah, yeah.
you know?
So he has an app, and that kind of put that thought in my
Right, he
head.
does.
Yeah, but I was just in this event last week that I've been to 15 times because guys, we are in fact, let me share something with you. When I built that house on the beach, and it's the message here is goals don't make you happy. Progress makes you happy.
Sure.
You need the goals to get off your butt and go take action. You need to know the whys to take action. But happiness comes from growing and progressing. And I didn't know that at the time, and I built that house, and I'm floating in the pool about 2 months after I built it. I'm looking up at this thing. There's a waterfall from the second floor into the pool. I've got, another waterfall from the spa. The light, it's changing colors, fiber optic lit. I'm looking up at this testament to my ego that I built to prove to the world I was good enough, and my family's inside sleeping, and this 2 months after I built it, I got depressed, and I'm like, what the hell is
next?
going on? I'm like, well, that's it. That's
What's next?
that's what it was, and that's
okay.
and it relates to the goals. Never achieve, and I didn't know this at the time. I went and bought a bunch of books. One of them was Tony's book, but I bought a bunch of books and recognize that like the good book says, without a vision the people perish. You need a vision for your future. If you meet someone that's depressed or even suicidal, they have no compelling vision for the future.
Right.
And I had accomplished this massive goal, achieved success beyond my wildest dreams, but I didn't know what to do next. Exactly like you said, Greg. And so that, and I was unfulfilled, and I can share that if you like later.
Yeah, Cardone talks about it in the 10X rule. That's one of the best things that I learned from that was that if you set those goals too low, like I think it was Ted Turner's father that did that. I think it was Ted Turner's father that set these goals so low, and he became a multi-millionaire, billionaire at the time, and he reached his goals, and he didn't know what to do with himself the rest of his life, and he literally lived the rest of his life in massive depression.
Wow.
Because he had nothing left to fulfill
Right.
himself.
It's like, what do you do now?
Right.
Yeah, and that's
He
I was there. Yeah,
pioneered it, and so what do you do after that?
Well, see, there were two things going on. There were two things going on for me. That was one of them. The other one was it was all about Rod. Rod. Prove to the world I'm good enough. I got picked on in school and got humiliated on the playground. You have all this stupid little stuff happen to you when you're young, and it creates these negative limiting beliefs. And so I had to prove myself, right? But there was another thing going on as well. Because I was so focused on myself, I bought those books. One of them was a Tony book, and I went to my first UPW in Fort Lauderdale about 20 years ago, okay? And I saw that he fed families for the holidays. Now he's done millions. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to feed some families. So I fed 5 families that year. I am now blessed to say that we have fed 65,000 kids for the holidays. In fact, we're doing 1,500 families on Saturday down in Sarasota, and a bunch of them are coming up here to Tampa St. Pete. I've done thousands of backpacks filled with school supplies. I've done tens of thousands of teddy bears for local police departments, for officers to keep in their car when they encounter a child that's been in a traumatic experience. And see, I was successful and I'd achieved, but I was unfulfilled because I was only thinking about me. And I will tell you, on my show, I have interviewed very, very wealthy people that, in my opinion, are not successful because they're totally focused on themselves. They don't, they're not giving back. They're not contributing beyond themselves. So those of you listening, you don't have to do anything as grandiose as I just described, but if success without fulfillment, success without giving back is not success. So whatever you do, make sure you're giving back, and don't think that you have to achieve to be able to do that. You can adopt one family and bring them a meal for $20, and so there are no excuses, and again, it's not successful unless you're giving back in some fashion. So I would encourage you and invite you listening to do that.
So, Rod, would you please share like a website maybe that we could, put in the show notes and on the YouTube?
Yeah, sure. I paid for it all myself. up until 2008 when my world collapsed. But I now have a foundation. It's called the Tiny Hands Foundation. It's tinyhandsfoundation.org, and we do take donations now. We were just so blessed. We got $20,000 yesterday from Sterling Bank. I want to give them a shout out. Just blew us away. But I paid for it. I mean, there were years I spent $50,000 on the food. In fact, 2008 was one of those years, and my brother was like, "We can't do it this year." And I'm like, "Buddy, and guys, those of you listening, you know this, but I want you to hear it again. What you give, you get back 100-fold, okay?" And I told my brother, I said, "We're going to do it no matter what." And we did, and of course it all came back financially. You want love, give love. You want happiness, give happiness. You want money, give your time. Call it tithing, whatever it is, whatever label you want to put on it, but we're put on this earth to contribute beyond ourselves. Anything in the universe that doesn't contribute gets eliminated. Okay, that's just a fact of life. And so, as human beings, that's a basic human need. And if you went to Tony, he talks about the 6 human needs. One of those is contribution.
Things that don't contribute get eliminated.
They do. In the universe,
like that.
Think about it. Everything in this universe, every animal, every creature contributes in some fashion. Every one of them, and so very interesting when you think about it. And we are no different. So we're put here to give back, and life's greatest richness and happiness and fulfillment comes when you give back. And I know we've totally gone off a side road here.
No, this is fantastic.
But I really want to share that, with you and your listeners, because I see it so often. These guys that it's funny. Tony talked about a Date with Destiny 2 weeks ago. He knows about, I don't know, it was 15 or 18 billionaires. He said only about 3 or 4 of them are truly happy because they give back. So many people think they have to achieve to be happy. They think that success will bring them happiness. And I'm here to tell you, instead of achieving to be happy, just happily achieve. You'll get much further faster. Yeah. Success doesn't bring you happiness. Happiness brings you success.
That's tough, though. I get impatient.
Well,
I'm like,
I understand. I understand. But I'm here to tell you, if you are scrambling and scrapping to find that happiness, you're gonna be slowed down, versus if you are happy right now and moving forward with positive energy and happiness, you're gonna move faster, and then you're already successful, frankly, because why are we on this earth if not to be happy? Yeah. Period. So why not be happy now is the point. And that's it's
Well, there's going to be a lot of people I know that are happy that I sat in here for this one today.
Yeah.
My mood is going to be better going forward.
So you have a dose of medicine.
All right.
Obviously, Rod, you're a big Tony Robbins guy.
Huge
fan.
fan.
I think that we've talked about a lot of great stuff here today, obviously, so far, and we're just scratching the surface, right? You can't do it alone, right? So talk about some of the mentors you've had besides Tony along the way, because obviously we could talk about Tony for an hour plus.
Yeah, no, I mean he's probably my biggest mentor by far. He's had such a huge impact in every area of my life. My mentors have been primarily books and courses that I've taken. And
what about the guy with the Corvette?
Yeah, I mean, that was a broker. He was actually kind of a sleazy guy, but he let me drive the Corvette. And that was, I wanted that car. But, you're crazy to make mistakes. You're crazy not to get help. And, I do live events. They're very reasonable. I mean, if you come see me if you can. Just me teaching for 3 days, no outside speakers coming in to sell you stuff. But regardless of, I know you coach as well. So, regardless of who you use, get a mentor, get a coach, because they can keep you from making a bunch of mistakes. They can get you, from point A to point B much faster, much safer. And why, I've made every mistake in the book. In fact, I've got a saying, ask me how I know.
Yeah, we say it all the time.
Yeah, and ask me how I know, because it's happened to me. In fact, one of my students just sent me a shirt with ask me how I know on it. Awesome. Really cool gift.
Very cool.
But, and so, why not learn from someone else's mistakes to get you there faster? And I've had coaches for decades, and I've also been involved in masterminds. Highly recommend those as well. Anytime you get a few people together to talk about a topic, it's like Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich. He talks about the mastermind, and he says, you get two like minds together. It creates a third intangible mind that's really greater than the sum of the parts. So
the book I'm listening to, one for a million time, Think and Grow Rich.
I actually
every day.
I actually give it away. I've given away a few thousand copies, actually, 1,000 copies. And it's the kind of book you don't read once. You read it, read it regularly.
You have to read it all the time.
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So Rod, let's let's talk about some of the bigger pros of the bigger multifamily stuff.
Sure. Well, see, that's why I started my podcast. I should have mentioned that. When I got my butt kicked in 2008, I had the houses and I had the apartments. Now, why didn't the houses make it? Because I had houses 2 hours one direction, 2 hours the other. I mean, I can tell you cities. Most people won't, but all the way from Brooksville to Bonita Springs, okay, and everywhere in between. So. If I have and then I had some apartment complexes, like I had an 80 unit down in Punta Gorda, and if I had a maintenance issue there, I'd send a maintenance guy. We'd have stockpiled parts, all the same plumbing, all the same HVAC, all the same appliances.
So much easier to manage.
Yeah, although everything's the same.
Yeah.
I could send a maintenance guy there to fix something. It would take an hour, okay? If I had a problem in one of my houses, everything's different.
Yeah.
So I'd send a guy to Newport Richie, take an hour to get there. He'd go see what was wrong. Then he'd have to find a Lowe's or Home Depot, take another hour to get back and forth, work on it.
Only an hour Home Depot?
Yeah.
And then right.
The old
and then,
2 hour Home Depot trip.
Right, and then
2 in 1 day.
and then, as whenever you fix something, you get into it and you figure you need something else.
Yeah.
So you go back. So what takes an hour in an apartment complex takes all day with a house,
For sure.
okay? And you multiply that times 800, and you couple that with, we have no state income tax, so the property taxes are very high here comparatively, and insurance. I had a lot of properties in wind and flood, so that added to it, and then a lot of the properties that I had were C properties, working class, a lot of construction people, and you guys, if you were here in 2008, remember what happened with construction? I mean, it was gone. Done, like a cliff, and so it was a perfect storm, and it was very painful for me because I truly thought I was set for life, and now of course those properties are all back and worth a lot of money. I'm like, crap. Yeah, it is what it is. Look back. Listen. I would not have met my amazing wife. I wouldn't live where I live now. I got no regrets.
Let me ask you this. A friend of mine. Everybody always says, "Oh, there will be another recession." The property
hold your thought, because I didn't finish telling the story. The reason that I started the podcast.
Rewind.
Sorry.
What was the name of the podcast, Rod? What is it again?
No, it's not about that. Is because my houses didn't make it, but my apartments did just fine through the crash. And it was like, wow, if I'd have just been in apartments, I'd be golden right now.
Recession proof.
Right. And that's the
almost
point.
Better in recessions.
That's the point. Is
people gotta live somewhere.
I started the podcast for 2 reasons. One, to tell people that my experience is like, man, if you're going to buy and hold, for God's sakes, buy multifamily. Don't buy houses. That's number one. Number two is I wanted to get investors because I was going to buy again, and it's we raised $5 million in 3 weeks. There's no problem raising money now, but that message was really important to get out there, and so. So I just wanted to finish that thought. Go ahead.
So another recession is going to come. We all know that at some point.
We're probably on the edge of it right now.
You know
that, right?
But I had a friend, and he goes, "Listen, you don't have to sweat properties too much." He says, "Because the same bubble never bursts twice." And I wanted to get your take on that. I found that an interesting take.
That's
true in a lot
ridiculous.
of areas.
No, not in real estate.
But in real estate,
real estate goes through cycles. Let me give you an example.
Correct.
Exactly.
Back in the 80s, I bought a house for $56,000. Put a garage on it, made $20,000 flipping it. I bootlegged a garage on. I shouldn't have said that publicly, but through a garage.
I don't think they're coming after you, Rod.
Yeah. I don't think the.
Do we have any photos of this monstrosity that you put on there?
I don't think the building department's coming after me.
No.
But anyway, so I made $20,000, sold it in high 70s, and the market crashed. I bought that exact same house back in Denver. This is Denver. Same house back for $18,000.
Wow.
Okay.
Get out of here.
Okay. 3 or 4 years later, sold it for $160,000.
Jeez.
And now it's $500,000.
Yeah.
This is Denver, Northwest Denver. So your friend doesn't know what
God,
the hell
I
he's
love
talking
it.
about. Okay.
Okay. So let me ask you this then.
Okay.
That's fine.
I
have a lot of friends like that. Okay.
Real estate. Yeah, they all have opinions, and you know what opinions are like.
Yep.
Armpits. Everybody's got them, and they
We
smell.
were saying that on the way to today. Like everybody.
But let me. Real estate goes through cycles,
right?
Like anything, it goes through seasons. Nothing to be afraid
see that
of.
Next cycle dipping. I mean, with the dip, we all know it's going to go down. Do we see catastrophic again?
Buddy, if I knew that, I'd already be on the back of my yacht.
Yeah,
okay?
no, I know.
Because the most money is made on the way down.
Right.
Now, I will tell you, I get Forbes, Business Week, Money, these magazines, and Business Week just had an article that, that it looks like it's happening. And a lot of the new home sales in some of the hottest markets in the country have fallen off a cliff.
Yep.
Right.
So, especially on the West Coast.
Yeah,
All on the West
and
Coast.
Texas. I remember Texas specifically. So, to think it's not going to happen is ludicrous.
Right.
Will it be as bad as 08? God forbid.
I hope
but
not.
let's hope not. But I'll tell you, the national debt in this country is crazy. Now, love him or hate him, Trump's doing a pretty good job with the economy, and so. I don't want to go down that path, but I should have probably even said it. But the bottom line is who knows?
Who knows?
Okay, could be a terrorist act that catalysts it. Could be national debt. Could be consumer debt. Could be student loan debt. I mean, could be, who knows? But we are going to have a contraction, no question.
Right.
It always happens, goes down and up. Now, with crisis comes opportunity.
Absolutely.
So, I tell my coaching students, tell your investors, tell your people with money to get ready.
That's what,
because
we actually just had that conversation last week with one of ours.
Because
I don't want to buy it. I'm like, well,
listen,
Give it a little bit of time.
Rub your hands together. It's coming. Okay, keep your powder dry. But you've got to teach your investors that it will be fearful then. Fear will be pervasive. Oh my God, real estate's so terrible. Yep. Blood running in the streets. It's horrible. That's the time you pounce.
Absolutely.
Of course, my ass was under a rock with one little eyeball poking out, scared because I'd lost everything. But if I'd have, in hindsight, that's when I should have sucked it up and found investors started buying again because people bought the houses I had for cents on the dollar.
I mean, look at Blackstone. They knew what to do. They were ready to go.
Thousands of houses,
Absolutely.
thousands and thousands and thousands. They're going to clean up, okay? And they're contrarian investors. Some of the wealthiest people on the planet are contrarian investors. When the blood's running in the streets, when they buy, when everybody's saying how great it is, they sell.
Yeah.
And that's
the thing
that's
that I
smart
took away
money.
from the last one that was just tough as I was kind of watching it all unfold and whatnot was everybody knows you're in pain and it's in a free for all. When does the free for all stop? You know what I mean? Like when? Like
let me tell you something. Let me tell you something, buddy. It's a mindset. I'm just going to tell you, it's a mindset. There were people that were thriving through that because they didn't get fearful. Not me.
Right.
I was fearful, but I turned it around and I actually started a litigation support company helping people out of foreclosure, helped thousands of families out of foreclosure. Okay. So I turned lemons into lemonade, but just sold that company recently actually, and so. It's a mindset. You have to make a mindset shift.
You sold that company? Mm-hmm. Have you sold a lot of them like that? You start little companies in real estate?
No. Most of them have crashed and burned because you got to focus on them. And I'm a shiny penny guy. Oh, shiny penny.
Yeah,
oh,
we all suffer from that.
Yeah.
So
I've had lots of businesses, and I love them. And I love talking. I love talking business as well. It's one of my passions to talk about culture and systems and operations and sales and marketing and all that. But we're here for real estate.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So, yeah.
One thing again, we were talking about like being recession proof are the apartment buildings because
listen,
you can't afford to live in a house or rent a house anymore. You got to go live somewhere, right?
Listen, will they dip? Yes, they will dip. Everything dips, and you do what's called a stress test when you buy a property. You pull it down to 15% vacant. You drop the rents down 10 or 15%. Will you still cover the nut? Are the payments going to get made? Right. And if so, then your chances are you're golden. Yeah. So but there will be a pullback. People will lose their jobs, and again, God forbid it's as bad as 08, but it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. It's seasons, and we're in the end of summer right now. Mm-hmm. Okay, and what comes after summer? Winter. Yep. Okay, winter is coming.
Yep.
So
Rod, brace yourself.
A lot of newer investors that we run into at the RIA. Sometimes they'll ask us, should we buy now? Should we wait? I feel like the market's going down. What's your comment on people that are considering waiting?
It is the perfect time to learn this business.
Yeah.
Okay, especially my business, multifamily, because it truly and if you stumble across a deal, great. If you don't, that's okay too. But if you build your team now, you find a pool of investors that trust you, and you've built relationships with them. You make relationships with brokers, property managers, and all the other pieces that you need to kick ass in this business. And when the market turns, you've got investors that aren't scared because you've coached them. Watch out.
So
you will clean up. If you listen to my podcast, you will find there's a pattern. If somebody's got over 1,000 units, most of them started, dozens of them, not exaggerating, started in 09, 10, or 11.
Yeah.
After the crash.
Yep.
They found bank-owned properties. They and so I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah. What would you recommend to somebody that is maybe newer in the real estate field, and how they should quickly add credibility to them if they don't have a platform?
Well, they have to learn. Okay, that's number one. And how do you build credibility? You align with someone. I'm going to talk about this tonight as well.
Okay.
But you align with someone that's got a few hundred units, and you use the we word. We own 300 units, okay? And that's how you do it. That's how everybody does it, okay? And they align with someone that's done it. They give them a piece of the deal. You know, if you raise the money and you find the deal and you've got credibility and you're a straight shooter, you're not full of it, and you're going to find people that will sponsor a deal for you. They'll sign on the debt because there's something called non-recourse debt, okay? Recourse debt is they come after you if they foreclose and there's not enough money. Ask me how I know. Non-recourse debt. Non-recourse debt is they only take the property. Okay, so if you find the deal and you've got the investors and you're going to manage it and you find somebody and say, hey, you know, I'll give you X% of this deal just to sign on the debt and bring the credibility, bring the balance sheet, bring the liquidity that the bank's going to require to approve the loan, and you get non-recourse debt, it's a gift to that person. Okay, unless you screw up really bad, but it's not hard to find those people. I mean, I've got probably 10 students that sponsor people on deals that have hundreds of units that'll sponsor people on deals. It's not hard to find those people. It's, you know, the hard thing now is finding the deals. Yeah. Answer your question?
So,
okay.
Another thing I wanted to bring up for the listeners on today's podcast was when you and I spoke a couple weeks ago, we wanted to go out and we wanted to show the listeners of our show, not just the podcast, but also of our webisode series or whatever, some real life projects that you're doing here in Florida. And you told me you're not doing anything in Florida.
No.
So tell me where you're investing and why you're not doing here in Florida.
We're in Ohio right now, Texas, and Indianapolis.
Okay.
Okay. And guys, that's and I started to talk about this when I made the underwear comment. We're so blessed that, you know, on our laptops we can pull listings. We can pick up our phone and talk to a broker. My team won't even go look at a deal unless we have a signed LOI that's fairly binding or we're under contract.
Okay.
We're not going to get spend money because, you know, you can do your demographical research. Their websites. You can check the crime in an area. You can go on Google and drive down the street, and if you drive down to the main intersection and there's a liquor store and a pawn shop and a strip club, that's a clue. Okay. so you know you can do all this from your laptop, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, you can do so much of the legwork. You pick up the phone, you call other competitive apartment complexes, find out what their vacancies are, what their rents are, what their amenities are, and you compare them, and you can really get a good idea of what you've got. So we live in a fantastic age to be able to do that. And so, you know, that's the other great advantage of commercial multifamily. You asked me why, you know, what's great about commercial multifamily. You can do it anywhere. Yeah. Okay. Now, I wouldn't recommend living in Florida that you go to California. I would, you know, because that's full day travel. You want to, you know, logistically want to be as, you know, closer to home. But you're not geographically limited in this space. That's what's so beautiful about it.
Sure. So, like, why Ohio versus Florida? Like, what's the big difference between?
Well,
you know, we kind of hit on it earlier. But
you know, I have a podcast, so I've got a national presence.
Sure.
I've got tens of thousands of ears that listen to me every week, and they're submitting deals to us to review. So
how many of those? Let me ask you that. How many of those are you getting on your inbox every week? How many are you getting, and then how many?
A lot.
Percentage-wise, are actually decent. Like 10% of them are actually something you might want to take a look at.
Less than 1%.
Less than 1%.
Yeah,
gotcha.
you're kissing about 200 frogs to find something right now. I mean, it's a tough market.
Sure.
But that's okay. I mean, you know, that's going to change. Trust me, that's going to change.
Yeah. We know.
I mean, and there are a lot of mistakes being made right now. There are a lot of operators that are clueless, that aren't stress testing deals.
So multifamily has become kind of the hot button issue right now. And you know, when someone
what do you mean issue
or topic, I should say, the vehicle for investing right now is the hot button issue. Everybody's talking about multifamily. When I hear that, it's just like, you know, the stock market. You sell when it's high. I wouldn't touch multifamily right now. I'm waiting for that correction to really do it.
But let me say this to you, okay? I don't disagree. And that's what I just told you. Lots of mistakes being made right now. Are there deals? Yes.
Sure.
I mean, we've got 3 deals that look fantastic right now.
Perfect.
And you know, so there are deals, and I've got students that are closing deals that are fantastic deals, but they're hard to find.
Right.
Okay. Now, But that said, now is the perfect freaking time to learn this business,
Bingo.
make the relationships, build a network, because if you wait and the market contracts, you're going to miss out on the best opportunity.
Everybody else has already done their job.
Yes,
and
that's the point. That's the point. So, I tell my students, God's delays are not God's denials. You just keep working at it, be diligent, because it is going to happen. And it's the truth. I mean, again, we know it's going to come back down. It may have already started. So, there's going to be opportunity. There's going to be. Let me tell you what happens. Commercial multifamily is valued based on a multiple of the net income. Okay, it's a cap rate. You multiply the cap rate into the net income to get the value. And let me tell you what's going to happen. There are people out there that are getting short-term debt, like they're getting 3 to 5 year debt. So let me give you the definition of a bad day. Okay, a bad day. Let me give you the definition of a bad day.
You haven't heard this before.
You've got an apartment complex that's cash flowing. Okay, it's making money, but the market has contracted and the cap rates have gone up. And by the way, it's counterintuitive. If cap rates go up, values go down. So the cap rates have gone up, and you have to refinance because you've got 3-year debt. Okay, so you've got a cash flowing asset that's not worth enough to refinance without putting a lot of money in. That is a bad day.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that's what's happening. There are people getting 3 to 5 year debt, and we could be at the depth of this next contraction, and they're screwed. So we're telling everybody at least 7-year, if not 10-year debt right now. Okay, so because in commercial real estate, you'll have a 20 to 30 year amortization. Like a residential loan, but you're going to have a balloon.
Sure.
I mean, that's the way commercial real estate works.
Okay.
Now, sometimes, you can have it where when the note comes due, you can, it'll automatically extend and go on a float or something like that. You will see that from banks sometimes, but on the non-recourse debt, the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac debt, you're going to have to refinance or sell. There will be a liquidation event when that happens. And so, very important to stress test a deal and to make sure your debt is not too short. And I'm getting really detailed now.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's start talking about your event you got coming up in January here.
No, I appreciate it, man. And it's January 18th, 19th, and 20th. It'll be in Tampa, and tickets are stupid cheap. And, I mean, you can spend more money, and we have dinner together and drinks and all that stuff. But entry-level tickets are like $397. It's like for 3 days of just me teaching. And it's multifamilybootcamp.com. But let me also share a couple other things with your listeners. One is
multifamilybootcamp.com.
Yes, sir.
I like that.
Yeah, and I also have a Facebook group that's like almost to 23,000 people. And, you've heard the saying, you are the 5 people you hang around with. Well, you want to be around people that want to do what it is you want to do. So they hold you accountable. They hold you to a higher standard. They push you. They empower you. They motivate you. And this is an incredible place to do that. So if your listeners are interested, then go to multifamilycommunity.com. And it's a direct link to that Facebook group. And then the last thing, I'll give your listeners a gift. And even though it's going to be on Amazon probably in January, I'll give them my book if they're interested. Just text the word ROD to 41411, and I'll give them a free copy of it. It's 200 pages, like a textbook for this business. It's not a fluffy thing. I mean, it's a really good book. And so,
is that the first book you put out?
Yeah. Yeah,
really?
I've got 2 others stacked up behind it, but
Okay.
books are a lot. It took 2 years, and finally I said, screw it, I'm going to get it done in 30 days. I had it done, and that's how it works.
How'd you get it done in 30 days when you said, screw it, I'm going to get it done?
Instead of going, he did it.
I focused.
You just
the
buckled
power,
down and did
the power of
sometimes
focus.
people hire like a ghostwriter.
No, not at all. The power of focus, brother. I mean, that's really what it is. It's focus. But the point is, I'll give it to your listeners for free. Just text the word ROD to 41411, and they can have a free copy.
Perfect.
So and it'll be either 25, could even be 35 bucks.
What's it called?
Lifetime cash flow through real estate investing, or how to create lifetime cash. I should know the name. I get them confused. How to create lifetime cash flow through multifamily properties.
You need to come out with one that uses the word seminar, like the unseminar seminar.
Learn from my seminars.
Yes, exactly.
Ask me
the
how
seminar
I know.
of life.
Ask me how I know. Yeah, right. Anyway.
Very cool.
You got anything else
man.
for Rod? Because I think this is
I'm
fantastic,
good, my
man.
This is great.
Mind's blown. Like I said before, guys, I'm ready to go crush some goals. I'm looking forward to your full leg presentation tonight at our RIA event. Thanks again, Rod, for coming out, man.
Awesome,
My
man.
pleasure,
Thanks,
guys.
appreciate it.
Enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks.
All right. Take care.
Boom.